Welcome to the Tuckcast with a Splash of Bourbon, where we talk about fishing and life. Presented by Tuckasegee Fly Shop, with 3 locations in Waynesville, Silva, and Bryson City. And if you can't make it there or need something fast, be sure to visit flyshopusa.com. If you're looking to experience Western North Carolina waters with or without a guide, visit tuckflyshop.com or one of our locations for more information on booking, the waters we fish, and current conditions.
Hello, hello, hello. You guys got me?
Yeah.
Yo.
All right, so we are coming back on here today. I got Matt and Logan on here today. They both guide for us. And we're going to talk about fly fishing for smallmouth today. Both of these guys, they do that quite a bit. Matt guides quite a bit for smallmouth, and Logan's starting to pick it up and do it too. So we're just going to talk about smallmouth today.
Might as well, since we got rained out of a smallmouth trip today.
Sad
Yeah.
times.
I know.
Smallmouth's on the brain.
I woke up this morning and called Logan. He actually texted me first, and he was like, I don't think it's going to happen today, bud. And I said, let me check. And
I literally woke up at 5:45. We weren't meeting until 9:30, and I was like, man.
yeah, it was going to be a good day. I mean, the way conditions laid out yesterday, it was going to be perfect, but we got way too much rain last night to even attempt to float today.
It's not even worth trying to float or fish that if it's over like 600.
Well,
they are not
it's
happy.
not necessarily a CFS issue. I've learned with smallmouth, I think the biggest factor is water clarity. So with the smallmouth that we've been fishing for, and Logan can attest to this because he and I have spent quite a bit of time together on the boat over the past year, and we fished it from summer, fall, winter, and then spring, and now back into summer. And the one thing that has been consistent is if it is sunny and your water clarity is good, you're going to have a good day fishing.
I wouldn't even go as far as sunny. Like our water clear. I mean, we fished an overcast day. That day we worked off Graveyard, and I was like, man, this is gonna be a waste of our time. And we put 40 or 50 in the boat.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things. I mean, it's fishing at the end of the day.
I mean, I think it's just the sun has to line up with everything to make it all come hand in hand. But
I mean, that day we did it, we went like back in January. You know, it was cold.
It was a grind.
Yeah, you know, so and it was kind of overcast and just not really the best day that day.
Yeah, but you caught your PB that day.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we were at the boat ramp and
Yeah, right. So, I mean.
But, I mean, you know, that's the thing. People always talk about Western North Carolina, whether it be trout, whatever you're targeting.
Right.
And Western North Carolina in a whole is a 12-month fishery.
Right.
100%.
Definitely.
At any given time, any given month, you can go out and target different species and catch fish. I contend you can catch trout 12 months out of the year here if you know where to go look for them.
Mm-hmm.
And my mission this fall, winter, and spring was to prove that smallmouth were the same.
Right.
And I feel like I know, Logan, you didn't get to get on the boat.
I didn't
with
go
me
this
as
winter.
much. Yeah, you went a couple times with me.
Yeah, but most of my stuff was when we started last spring. I went on one trip just before deer season.
Yeah,
And then we started again early this year.
well, you went with me in fall.
Yeah.
And
So
that's when you caught your PB.
My PB came in the fall.
No, it was February. Yeah, I've got the picture.
Yeah.
Hang on.
It was back at the beginning. It was because this was like a few weeks after I went.
Yeah,
Because
we
were talking about how much like
Yeah.
the temperature and a little bit of time changed.
Oh,
with this.
I just looked at the picture of it, and we did some release videos for you that day, and the water clarity that day was like tea-colored.
It's tea-colored and chocolate milk are two different things.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And today we were past chocolate milk.
Yeah, it was like a smoothie out there. But in all fairness, we haven't had a lot of rain over the past couple of weeks.
Right.
So when we do have these high rain events, it pushes a lot of mud into the river. Because, I mean, I went to bed last night planning this trip, getting ready to go pick clients up, all that stuff, and the CFS was 321 when I went to bed last night.
Right.
When I woke up this morning at 6:45 and checked the CFS, it was at 1910 and climbing. And while, ended up coming to the shop today and just doing some, I would say, guide maintenance, just fixing reels and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I kind of kept an eye on the CFS throughout the day, and it peaked at 3110.
Right.
So 3,110 CFS versus 310 CFS.
And for people who doesn't know what that means, it's blown out. It's really bad, like sudden death if you try to wait it. So just stay at home and drink coffee when you see stuff like that.
Yeah.
The spike on the USGS goes like straight up like this. You know it's about to get gnarly.
Yeah.
So
It was one of them days where you're not rowing. You're setting the boat straight, and we're cruising.
Was it February?
February 28th.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
It was February 28th. Logan caught.
That was my birthday trip.
Yeah. Yeah. It was your
Because
birthday.
I had to work on my birthday.
You did.
And Justin ended up having to work because he was going to go with us.
Yeah, and you were like, I want to go fish for my birthday
smallmouth
because
fish.
you hadn't been able to get out on the water much just with schedules, and that was right when I quit my full-time job to come fish full-time.
Yeah.
That
And
was the
you were
first
like,
Saturday
Your
we
last
had.
week or first week here with us.
That was my first week
Yeah.
full-time with the fly shop,
Yeah.
So
That's crazy. That
Yeah,
was
but I mean,
February.
it was February. And
That
you
was a
caught-
fun fish.
That was the biggest fish I've seen come out of that particular river.
Especially in that section. We've not pulled many in that section.
I've
I
caught fish.
personally
Yeah,
haven't.
I'd caught fish there, but a lot of dinks.
Yeah.
And,
That was not
you
a
know,
dink.
You know,
She
pounder, pound and a half. She was a solid.
Maybe
4.5.
Justin can put a picture of it up.
Yeah, I'll
because
try
she
to-
was 4.5.
I'll try to make a
every
mental
bit.
note here to put a picture in on this so
She
you guys
was-
can see that. So.
I
Yeah,
wish they
that's-
would have been there for that.
And
'cause
that
it
was a gorgeous fish.
It was so funny how I was stripping. We had taken a regular rod.
Stripping.
Yeah, I was stripping my line in.
Well, you know, got to do
I
what you
mean-
got to do. Make ends meet.
So I was working this fish in, and Matt was like, "There's a chase." Well, I was picking up to reset.
Yeah. And I was like, drop it.
I dropped my rod straight back down, and she just crushed it.
Just
and I went,
hammered
"Here we
it.
go."
Yeah.
And
It was funny.
What, 5 feet from the boat? And we still had to work her for a few minutes too.
Oh,
because
yeah. I mean,
she hit and ran.
you caught that on the 6-weight too, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes it even more fun.
Yeah. So I had just got my Alpha Plus, and it was I didn't even have my Alpha Plus then. I had that.
Is that Clearwater 6-weight?
Yeah,
Probably, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I just had the Clearwater,
We
maybe
hadn't
that
even-
Scott Wave.
Yeah.
I think
It
I
was
had
the
that
wave
Scott.
because
We've
Yeah.
beat that wave to death.
Yeah, Logan has.
No,
He broke it like 4 times.
I didn't break it. These
But
people are
no,
gonna
yeah.
think bad
So
of me.
I had a first generation Clearwater rod, which I love that rod.
It's incredible.
It's you know, I am not the biggest Orvis fan sometimes, but they do have good rods.
Right.
But that generation, that first generation green blank
Yeah.
Clearwater is a fantastic rod.
Mm-hmm.
And I that's one I hope I never break because if I ever have to send it in.
We're done.
Yeah, they're
It's
they're
done.
gonna send me a new one. But yeah, we had that 6-weight on, and it was funny because I told him I was like, we're gonna have to throw a sink tip today just to get down, and
I think we were throwing a 7.
we had a 7-weight with a
IPS.
sink tip, and it was a 7 IPS, and I did not have another sink tip on the boat that day,
Yeah.
and I was like, I really don't want to sling this 8-weight. We started halfway down, and yeah,
That was a nightmare.
It was, yeah.
That was-
It started out bad.
It did not start well.
Yeah, I was
'Cause
Yeah.
flat backed on the trailer. Just like, it was bad.
You had a guide trip that morning, and
Yeah.
he met me at the ramp, and I was like, "This ain't really a ramp. We're just gonna roll it down here and see what happens."
Yeah, on the river will
Yeah.
remain unnamed, but
Yeah.
yeah, no spot.
Nunya Creek.
Yeah, Nunya Creek.
Um,
But no, I mean that was a great day. But I mean, you had caught a brown trout right before that.
Which we are not used to seeing.
No, I've caught trout out of there,
But
but
not that
not
high.
consistently, or that low, I would say. He had caught a brown trout. I hooked up on a very nice fish that we lost right there at the boulder hole.
Yeah. So for the people at home, I'm new to rowing.
Yeah.
I've been doing it right at a year, and I started on the unknown river.
Nunya.
So I'm comfortable on it, but we were in this back eddy that was just pushing, and
It was technical.
he hooks up, and this thing goes right under the boat. And I'm like, if I pull off this anchor, we're out of this hole. It's done.
Yeah,
And we come off anchor, and we shoot down.
30 yards.
And I was like, I don't know if I can get back up there. And he's like, you got to try something.
Yeah, because the fish, that
It was
was a
smart.
big fish too. I contend that fish would have been just.
She
as
would have
big.
been bigger,
I-
big as, if not bigger.
It's hard to say that it's not. It's going to be bigger than the one you caught, but the way that fish bullied me,
Yeah.
I mean, it absolutely took my lunch money.
And she was smart.
I mean, and I know it was probably a big female, you know, just laying in one of those deep holes.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of that day was we actually caught like 15, 16 fish.
Yeah.
In the matter of like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. It was one of the better days.
One of our better
I've had.
days, especially for a half day.
And especially for February. It was one of the better numbers days I had in cold weather. And it was cold that day. But we caught a couple of fish, and they were spitting up shiners.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, a lot of people with smallmouth, they tend to say you need to throw a crawl pattern.
Yeah.
You got to throw this crawl pattern. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to, you know, where we're fishing at, man, I have a singular fly that I will throw. And I've actually got one in my headliner, my forerunner right now, that he and I fished. The first time he and I ever fished, and it actually popped up on my memories.
Yeah.
It's
today.
been
a year.
It's been a year today.
It was our first trip down.
Yeah. Well, it was our first like legit fishing trip of rowing and doing all that stuff.
By ourselves without somebody from the shop with us.
Yeah. Like, hey, let's go figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
And that day, it made me and him become addicted.
If I could get every trout fisherman to hook up one time, it don't matter the size of smallmouth they hook up on, they will be like, all right, well, from June to August, no more trout.
Yeah, I love trout. I do. I think guiding has made me have a bit of a different love-hate relationship with trout sometimes. So when I get the opportunity to go target something that's not trout, it's fun. You know? And trout are still fun too.
Well, let me stop real quick. You know, this is why like we're talking about this today because you know the weather's getting warmer. You know, some of our trout fishing in some of our places is starting to slow down a little bit due to water temperature, and a lot of it has to do with it's June 21st today.
Yep.
Yeah, and I can't remember the last day that it rained.
Other than today, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, before today, like I can't.
Yeah,
has it rained in June? I mean, did it rain in June? I mean, has it been like the middle of May?
Nothing substantial. I know we've had like a few little
like
pop-up
showers, but no rain. Like,
not enough to affect our flows.
Yeah, like one of those good like soaking rains, or so that's why like I wanted to hop on here with you guys today about smallmouth. You guys kind of have the game like dialed in for us and run a lot of that stuff for us, and so I just want to kind of preface all.
Yeah, I mean, and as a guide, with me doing it full time now, even when I was doing it part time, I was relatively consistent when I was part time. So, but I didn't run a bunch of smallmouth trips with clients last year.
I don't feel like we really started booking them until I know we had the option, but I feel like people are deliberately asking now, like, "Hey, do you guys do this?"
Well, and I think that's a twofold thing.
Well, that comes when we had to make sure we had the people to be able to do it and the water to do it before, like me
we could
scheduling like Dale and I scheduling media. We can't schedule media for something that we can't offer. We have to make sure that.
But it took me a year to get that dialed in.
Yeah.
To the point that I'm comfortable taking people out and being like, "Hey, this is a trip that you can come have fun on
and successfully
and be successful and learn something and produce fish." You know, I don't think I've had knock on wood. I don't think I've had a day on that river that I've blanked.
Yeah.
I've at least put a fish on the boat every time I've went out. I've fished it in snow. I've fished it in sleet. I've fished it in scorching sun. It's been, but as a guide and a fisherman, even take guiding out of the equation. Like Logan, you just recently started guiding.
Yeah, I've only got
a couple months ago. You got like 3 trips under your belt now.
3 full trips under my belt.
Yeah.
They were all day trips.
And, I kind of pressed him to come guide because he's good at it and he enjoys it. And
yeah, I want people to enjoy it for the reasons I enjoy it.
Exactly. So, guiding's so much more than that. But just as a fisherman, part of the fun of a river is figuring it out.
Yeah.
If you can just go out there and do whatever and catch fish every time, whatever. Yeah. It's still fun. But what I love about smallmouth is they're patternable, but they're different from day to day. but there's just always that chance at that just trophy smallmouth that you're going to hook up on that's it fights like no other.
Let's hold it right there.
Yeah.
We'll take a break, and then we'll be right back.
Cool.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to make up for some missed travel. If you find yourself wanting to expand your list of places fished, be sure to consider fly fishing travel with Tuck Fly Shop. Travel with Tuck Fly Shop connects you with one of our guides to the world. We are currently booking for 2024 Montana and Argentina. Tuck Fly Shop Travel is connecting you to your next adventure.
Got a technical foul.
That's a party foul.
Come on, Reinhardt.
Fumbled the ball.
All right, so before we had that little ad there, we were talking about like patterns and fishing at different times of year. I guess like any fishing, smallmouth is going to change. Like how you, like what techniques you use for these fish, it's going to change by weather, temperature, time of year, stuff like that.
To a degree.
The biggest thing I've noticed is where in the water column are we going to target them?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have personally never seen or caught one on topwater in our year of doing this.
Yeah.
I've never had an opportunity. I mean, there was our very first trip, and they were I don't even think it was bass.
No, it was carp.
But that was the only topwater action I've seen.
So I will say that about smallmouth fishing around here. I have caught them on poppers in that section.
Yeah.
I took a few pictures of a trip I took about 4 weeks ago, 1st of May, I guess.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was like, you know what? It's kind of one of those things. Like if anybody ever watching has a bass background, you're going to throw a topwater even though you're not seeing topwater eats all the time. So, but the trout fisherman in me is like,
there's nothing eating.
Yeah, the trout fisherman in me is like, well, I don't see a fish rising. I can't throw anything topwater.
Yeah.
But that's where bass and trout do differ quite a bit. Is bass are extremely predatory and they're extremely opportunistic.
Yeah.
So if you put something in somebody's face and it's like, hey, here it is, come eat it, chances are they're going to try to attack it to a degree.
Yeah.
So that trip, we were catching fish and moving several fish, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw a popper on. And threw a popper on and literally second cast, tucked it up against a rock in the middle of the river, like somewhere you wouldn't typically cast a popper. One strip off the rock, it just comes up and blows up on it like a good fish.
Right.
And I was like, all right then.
This is good.
So
yeah,
we rocked with it a little while, and basically casting anything that so one thing I've learned with smallmouth too is they don't always push to the banks,
at all. I mean, as a fisherman, we're floating these rivers, and you're like, man, I got to cast to the bank.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we're rolling right over where these fish are.
Exactly.
And you're like, well, what do you do at that point? How can I get, river right or river left where we can cast to the bank and strip to the middle? So that was a big challenge for me. And, the way we kind of counter that is just the way we position the boat. Right. And then you'll either fish front or behind you.
Well, I'll break some rules on the raft. Like one of the rules that I was taught when I first started rowing, and you watch the YouTube videos and stuff like that, is you don't roll rapids sideways. You always north-south, run straight.
The first rapid we hit it sideways, just by the way.
Yeah, with me with a fish on too.
Yeah.
Anyway. But no, it's like you have to do this, you have to do that. Well, one thing that I've learned to do is, and for those people that have never rowed, the reason you don't run your boat like that is if you catch your downstream oar on the bottom, the force of the boat continuing down the stream is going to force the oar up. It'll knock you out. It'll hurt you bad.
Flip the boat, capsize everything.
Yeah, it can be bad. So you have to be mindful of what you're doing. But floating down sideways, Logan, I think
I
it was like
prefer it. It's so bad.
It's bad, but it's
I prefer it. But streamer fishing.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. With streamer fishing, you do that, and it allows both of your anglers to cast behind the boat. and it allows the force of the water and the boat coming down, plus your strip and retrieve, is giving that fly motion. It's kind of
it's a double-edged sword.
It is. It's a little bit of a risk. I mean, I haven't lost any teeth yet, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Or clients.
But yeah. Nah, I'm just kidding. But we just you adapt. You figure out what works. And the way we figured that out was kind of funny. I don't remember who was fishing with us, but Logan was on the back of the boat. And whoever was on the bow couldn't cast. Like, we were working on their casting.
Right.
And Logan just was like, I'm going to take a break for a second. He kicks back, and I was like, don't even strip that line in, just leave it out. And he left, maybe 25 feet.
If that. I mean, it was right at the boat.
Yeah, 25 feet of line out. And he's sitting back there hitting the vape, just kind of vibing, riding down the river. And all of a sudden he goes, oh, hell, I got a fish. And he lifts the rod up. And I was like, you just caught a smallmouth trolling a streamer.
We trolled a streamer.
With a raft. With a non-powered boat. You were trolling a streamer and caught a fish.
That's hilarious.
And now, I mean, especially if it's just me and you, if we're tired and somebody's taking a break, flick that thing out there.
Flip it off the side.
Flip it off there, yeah.
Yeah.
The rower can reel it in or land it.
That's just something I picked up on, and I was like, oh, okay. So these fish are not like trout in the fact that if you roll over their head, they're not going to eat. They're not boat shy. They're very aggressive. So if you've got a bait out there like he said earlier, in the correct water column, they're going to eat it.
Yeah.
I think it was like an aha moment.
It was. It very much was. Yeah.
Because we were fishing the middle of the river, and we hadn't been doing that. Now,
I think we had, but just differently.
I think the best day I have had was our first trip fish number-wise, because we didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying stuff.
Yeah, we done everything that trip. And I think that's a good point to make is I have not matched my first day's numbers there.
Yeah.
So the first time he and I went out, it literally took us 12 hours, though.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
That was a grind of a day.
We got on the water at
didn't have a good takeout.
7.
Yeah, we were on the water at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Rolling at 8 a.m. And we didn't get back to my house until dark. And the takeout's a mile from my house. But that day, we were both. I was green on the oars. He was green to streamer fishing and oars. And but we just tried everything. We put 72 fish on the boat that day.
That is the most fish I've caught in one day, freshwater.
No size, like nothing crazy big. Like I think maybe 2 pounds was our biggest fish.
Yeah.
Maybe, like a 12, 14-inch fish. But, I mean, it was literally we could do no wrong.
But I'll say this, if you guys didn't have that day starting out, do you think you'd have had the motivate, or that would have gave you that push to continue, or maybe push it as hard as you did? It gave you that confidence?
Me personally,
maybe it gave you that confidence, like on the rowing, and like, hey, I do know where these fish are sitting.
It made me realize it was possible. Because, I mean, like, is that something we can do around here? And I always thought we had to drive to go do something like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think a little bit of it, too, was like he and I went in with the expectation that we weren't going to catch anything.
We went to practice rowing and
conveniently
took a fly rod.
That's like we had the conversation because we worked off a graveyard that day. Me and Logan worked the same shift for
5 years.
5 years. 4 years. And so he and I would do stupid stuff like that, like work all night, get off, and go fish all day.
You haven't lived until you've done that at least a few times in your life.
And then when I started guiding, I would work graveyard, get off at 5 a.m., go home, change, get ready, and then go guide for a full day. So but no, we had worked off graveyard. I was like, I don't even want to go to bed. We were excited. I was like, I don't even want to go to sleep. I was like, let's go grab some breakfast, which we went to our little local spot that we always do, and grab the boat.
Oh, and they sent coffee with us.
Yeah, we had coffee.
That helped.
Oh my gosh, it was on the boat.
And so we just sent it, man. Like the only thing I knew about that river was the put in was not private. Other than that, I didn't know what the rapids looked like. Yeah. We pulled it up on like Onyx or something and like mapped out some
try to find some runs or
Yeah,
or
but
halfway,
I mean,
like
at
something.
that point in my rowing career, I didn't know
Yeah.
what to do with those runs.
I don't
anyway.
even think we were looking for runs. We was just looking for hazards.
Yeah, like
this
big
may be a
log jams.
problem.
Oh, if I hit
or-
that, it's going to kill me. So I need
Yeah.
to go this way.
I mean,
Yeah.
genuinely, that's what.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, but yeah, so we didn't really know what we were looking at, but we figured it out. You know, like, all right, we're gonna put in right here, and then we're gonna take out right here. This is the idea.
Yeah.
And
The takeout.
Oh, the takeout was horrible. But but yeah, man. I mean, like I said, and to circle back to what you asked, I think I would have still fished it, but that day in and of itself made me really think. I'm like, okay, I can do this.
It made you a
has to-
believer.
Yeah, that has to give you. I mean, to never been on that river, that stretch of water, rowing,
Yeah.
Trying to figure this out, and you said you tried like everything, so you go through progressions like with
Yep.
different flies, different water depths, different things, and constantly, throughout the day catching fish on those different
Yep.
techniques, patterns, what have you. Like I know from I mean, just me speaking, I know that if I was in that situation, it would give me like a huge like boost of confidence to want to go back and do it
Oh,
again.
yeah.
And it kind of helps because me like first thing I'm gonna do is like call you, and I got like, dude, I just caught 70 fish out here, today. Like we got to go back and do this.
Yeah.
And then that just like kind of starts that steam.
Well,
rolling.
if you remember that day that we had went to, he caught that PB.
Yeah,
You were supposed to be on the boat with us. That
I know.
day.
Yeah,
And you backed out. And
I had work.
No,
I was working.
You weren't working.
No,
at the
because we went late.
We weren't. You weren't working here.
Something
you were
happened.
doing something. I think it was a
Photo shoot.
Photo shoot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it was. You had a photo shoot. But
Okay.
anyway,
You know who your
And
friends
then-
are.
you got done, and he was catching fish like crazy.
Yeah.
And we actually FaceTimed you out there,
Oh yeah.
and we were like, "Look at this!" And and while I'm FaceTiming you, he's catching
I
fish.
slammed
Yeah.
another one
He
that
slammed
would
another
have
3 pounds.
Yeah, she would have competed with the first one.
I
Yeah.
don't think she was as big.
She
as
wasn't
the
as
first
big,
one,
but she was a lot meaner. That was a longer fight.
Yeah, but she ate like soon as it hit the water.
Right.
The cool thing about that day too, you talked about it for a second, where they were busting bait.
Yeah.
We caught fish and shiners were flying out of their mouth.
Yeah.
Like they were aggressively eating multiple things.
They're like gorging themselves
Yes.
and still eating
Yeah.
flies.
and I mean, it was
Yeah.
still fairly cold.
Yeah, it was.
I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't
I mean,
miserable, but
I remember being in a jacket that day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were probably in the 50s area, but on the water, it's gonna be colder.
I was gonna say 40s, and then by the time we got to the takeout, because
It was
dark,
cold.
it was cold.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I mean that. But no, having good days goes along. You always want to have more good days than you have bad days.
Well, yeah.
right?
That's, yeah.
But having that good of a day to start it out, it was like it kind of gave me the confidence of okay.
Yeah.
I am valid enough to, because before that point, I was exclusively a Wade guide.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because rowing, like I would do it for myself or do it for my buddies, but it intimidated me to have clients out. And not intimidated me in the fact that I could do it or not. It's just like these people are paying money to come spend time with us to
Yeah.
catch fish.
Yeah.
I want to give them the best experience possible.
Right.
And, having a day like that where I was like, I've never done this river. I don't know anything about it. There's not going to be another boat out here.
Mm-hmm.
I have no fail safe. Like I have to get this boat from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it was a big confidence boost. And then,
I think for me, having that big first day, because I mean, we've had slower days, but then you think back to that and you're like, well, that's possible. Maybe they
Yeah.
just weren't happy today. So I mean, you know that they're there and they're gonna play
what would you say an average day is?
20, 25.
A person.
I went the other day with you and I caught 18. So I mean, we normally stay in the upper teens.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it over 20, but
Yeah. I would say your average day out there is about 20.
20
Yeah.
fish total,
Yeah.
Total.
So 20
Yeah.
fish.
like in the boat that day.
To the boat. I mean,
are we counting LDRs?
yeah.
Yes, because that's
That
just
is-
conservation
Then I would
release.
put it up
yeah.
at that 15.
Honestly, with the way smallmouth eat, you very rarely have them spit.
Yeah.
I have missed some.
Matt
and I
missed his
have-
PB on a shaky head. That thing jumped the water. We had my
well,
dog
that day
with
I was
us.
with him, I missed 3 in like one spot right there because I just couldn't set the hook right.
Yeah, I was like, Justin set the hook.
He,
Justin set the hook. I felt like I was guiding somebody.
It was right after I got more confident rowing that thing started jumping on us because we had the dog on the boat that day.
Yeah, that was towards the bottom of the float too. That was dead heat of July or August.
Yeah, it was hot.
I would have estimated that fish well over 5 pounds because I got to see that fish.
Yeah.
And that fish.
These people have not lived until they've fished with Carl.
Well, I had a blister on my finger that day. Remember?
Yes,
because that fish peeled line so fast and so hard. I had a blister.
Yeah.
On my finger from trying to stop that fish.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's take a quick break
crazy.
real quick. We'll just keep talking about all this.
Bobby, I really want folks to know that if you are coming to visit the waters of Western North Carolina, don't wait another minute to book your next guided fly fishing adventure at tuckflyshop.com. Did you know you can visit tuckflyshop.com and book with convenience online anytime? We have guides that are professional, courteous, and knowledgeable, and sure to make that experience one to remember. tuckflyshop.com for your next adventure.
All right. So, kind of back to smallmouth fishing and everything we love about smallmouth fishing.
Oh, yeah, dude. Smallmouth's one of those things that it got in my blood, and I just ain't been able to shake it.
Yeah.
You know?
What, so trying to keep like this, like rolling, because I know we can sit here and talk about this for
Fish
hours.
stories, yeah.
Yeah, just fish stories. What, is there like a technique or like a tip or some tips or technique for people going smallmouth fishing? Maybe maybe they're floating, maybe they're wading, whatever. I know some places you can wade for smallmouth, but
me and Logan have waited for them.
The biggest thing for me is don't overdo it. Like, don't overexert yourself. You're going to be exhausted from casting all day. Big flies, big rods. There's a thing we'll do now where, we'll get, 20 feet of line out and just roll cast it.
Yeah.
And we'll just work the banks in the middle, pick it up, and reset. And you're not having to strip or double haul or anything like that. Don't get fancy with it. Just
fish.
Just fish. Have a good time.
I would say if I had to give you 3 tips for smallmouth fishing, first one's going to be keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
Don't feel like you have to go buy all this specialized stuff to go do this.
Right.
You can do it with a 5-weight. It's going to be a rod on a 5-weight. I most of the time, like me personally, with the gear that I fish, I'm fishing 7s, 6s, and 7s, and even up to 8s, depending on where I'm at.
And we can kind of talk about gear here in a minute.
But, so don't get overcomplicated. Don't feel like you have to go out and be intimidated by the process of it. Your strip is not like a traditional, what I would call trout strip.
Right.
So when you're casting and retrieving these flies for smallmouth, what you're imitating is, dying bait fish, things like that. So when you're casting it out, and this is one of the first things I go over with clients when they get on the boat for a smallmouth trip, is cast it out, get that slack out of the line, and use your rod tip to create the action in your fly, because you physically aren't going to be able to strip fast enough to keep up with that fly for the movement that I want you to make and the water I want you to displace with that fly.
Yeah.
So what I normally do is I tell people, I like, cast it out there, hit your mark, get tight on it, and then start twitching that rod and use your strip to catch up that slack from your twitches. So, and then the third tip would be fish everything.
Yeah.
Don't just feel like you got a whole hop and look for these big deep runs.
We're finding these things laying where they should not be laying. There is no reason a fish should be right there, and I promise you'll pull one.
Yeah, fish it all. Yeah. So
smallmouth are crazy when it comes to that.
Yeah, fish the shallow stuff, the riffly stuff, the deep stuff, the slow stuff,
structured, non-structured,
rocks,
all of it. Just fish the whole river.
Yeah, literally. Don't leave a stone uncasted to. Fish the front of the rock, the back of the rock, the side of the rock.
In saying that, though, don't spend your whole time in one hole, because we get bad to do that. We get in trouble with the significant others as far as hey, where are you guys at? Oh, we're halfway done. And then, an hour later, we're still sitting in the same hole.
Yeah.
And then we get in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm bad to do that anyway.
Oh
I fish, like, I'll just kind of sit there and just want to kind of dissect and just
because
be really thorough.
Well, in your mind, you're like, man, that looks fishy.
There has to be a fish there.
I wouldn't say that we spend all the time in one spot. We were just like, hey, I really want to fish this run. I really want to fish this next run. And stuff that we should probably just, like, keep
mosey
moving
on
and power through. We really, like, will back row it and hit a bank twice and stuff like that. But my style of fishing when I'm fishing by myself, I mean, y'all all have fished with me.
If you're not a marathon runner, you can't fish with Matt if he's not doing it professionally. Like, I forgot, like, my Nike running shoes and my running shorts, and I couldn't keep up one day. I
just
like,
leave him. I'm like, I'll catch up when I can, my man. Like,
I don't know, man. Like, I feel like if I put 5 good casts in a run that I want to hit, and that fish ain't going to lead it, I'm moving to the next run.
That's speaking about trout.
Exactly. But, I mean, I try to break that mindset when I'm bass fishing. So if you're wading for bass, it's a completely different thing because you do fish such a larger body of water. Yeah. Throw up in your mouth a little bit right there.
Oh, just a little yawn. It's a weird yawn, yeah.
Chicken sandwich coming back to haunt.
Yeah.
My man about to pass out.
But nah, man, I mean, bass fishing has made me a better trout fisherman, and trout fishing has made me a better bass fisherman.
Right.
So there's not like one wrong or right way to do things. I can tell you that there are things that you're going to do that are going to create a higher probability for a bite, and then there's other things you're going to do that are going to create a lower probability for a bite.
Right. Logan, did you have any tips, or is that it? Or
just don't overdo it, and I mean, the big thing to me is just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're not going to catch anything if you don't go, but just enjoy it. The more fun you have, it seems like the more fish you catch.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds cliche, but we're cutting around on a boat, listening to music, and then boom.
Fish.
Or you're just not paying attention, talking like we do on the river anyway.
Yep.
And boom. And then, like, when I'm trying, like, I feel like when I try to catch fish, like, I know that something should be right there.
Nothing.
They ain't happening. Won't happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just enjoy it would be my big thing. Just, I'm going to second Matt's thing, too. Don't go out here and buy all this crazy equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, I throw a 4-weight, and it is a ride, boys. It is insane.
Yeah.
But we do it more out of boredom, but.
Yeah.
Make something challenging more challenging.
That's right. Yeah.
It took us, 2 hours to get one to land that day?
To land
we weren't
it,
fighting it.
That's
just to get them to eat with what we were throwing.
Right. That's where you would either get a hook spit or a break off or anything. But, fishing lighter tackle, it's just hard to get a positive hook set on those fish because they do have a bony mouth. But
I wouldn't even, and safety-wise, do your research, like, of where you're going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, be safe, be smart, but if I could take every trout fisherman bass fishing, I would.
Yeah. It's so much fun. Like when it gets like this time of year, it's all I think about. I think about doing it.
It's
I don't. Yeah,
it's like getting warm.
It's like time. Something like clicks in my mind. Like we're going after brook trout and smallmouth. From now through September.
I mean, that's my 2 preferred poisons throughout the year. Unless we've got clients with us, but
I haven't smallmouth fished since January when he and I went. But like it's what I'm thinking about. It's constantly on my mind. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even when we go too, you're the first person that calls when we get off the water.
Yeah.
Hey man, how'd it go?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've been blessed and fortunate to be able to fish as much as I do. Aside from this past 2 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, we.
I've kind of and even then I was fishing.
We fished at the beach.
I mean, but we were on vacation.
Catching them dinks.
So we were fishing, but but as far as like trout fishing and stuff like around here, I think for the month of March, April, May, and June, I probably averaged 6 days a week fishing.
I felt so bad yesterday. I worked the Bryson store, and I had guys coming in. I mean, it was a very rainy day.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank goodness, because it was chocolate milk. I was like, they were like, what should we be throwing today? I was like, it's micro streamers.
Yeah.
Fast water. If it had been a pretty fishing day, I wouldn't have known what to tell. I'd be like, I don't know what they're hitting right now. I mean, you can throw junk flies, but I don't know specifically what they're, because I haven't been here. I haven't fished, you know?
Just always throw a Duracell. Ain't that right,
Duracell
Bob?
and mop fly.
Duracells and mop flies, baby.
But it was, I feel like this year fishing has been pretty crazy
This year's
already.
been technical.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a grind even.
Yeah, it's and that's also why I like having smallmouth in my back pocket is the trout fishing has been so frustrating for the past few weeks. And it's like, okay, let's go do something let's go have fun.
Yeah.
You know.
The thing I like about smallmouth as a guide now that I didn't really realize, and I was talking to a guy in the store about this yesterday. As a guide, you know, you're coming to us primarily to do trout fishing.
Mm-hmm.
In my free time, I'm not going to go trout fish.
Right.
So I can have a more enjoyable experience with you.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Like I want to enjoy it as much as you do.
Yeah.
So smallmouth gives us that option.
Yeah.
To do something different.
No, I mean, it's the same reason we go to saltwater
And go redfish. Yeah.
I mean, hell, we've been down there. I don't know how many times, and I've put one on the boat and
we have like
blew
one
my
fish in the
shot
boat.
at 20.
Yeah.
I had one shot last week until we wrecked the boat.
Yeah, well,
That's another podcast for another day. We're already 40 minutes into this,
that's
so
still
we
a
got
sore subject too.
Yeah.
I'll sell you one.
No,
I think smallmouth in general. Like working in the shop, working like in Waynesville and Sylvan and stuff like that. We have those guys calling wanting to book float trips in July,
Right.
and they're like, well, they want to trout fish. And when we talk to them, we talk about expectations and like what to expect with that, and we tell that we smallmouth fish this time of year. Yeah. Well, I really want to catch trout. I'm like, have you ever hooked into a smallmouth on the fly?
Pound for pound, it is the hardest fighting freshwater fish.
I agree.
I mean,
so if you don't take nothing else out of this, but like when we say like you need a smallmouth fish in the summer, like
it.
just come book a trip and try
on the
it.
fly.
Well, I thought
on the fly.
So
yeah,
I was the nervous one about it out of this group. I was like, man, that doesn't sound fun because I grew up catching largemouth, and I was like, it is nothing.
Yeah,
largemouth are lazy.
I had to like do some significant talking into getting him to go. Actually,
yeah.
I mean, it was a solid like 2 weeks of him pushing and like, hey man, let's go do this. Yeah. And I am so thankful that I did.
Well, I think a little bit of this podcast too should be just awareness that we do have a fantastic smallmouth fishery.
Yeah.
And like you said, we've talked about it off and on throughout the podcast, but weather and conditions dictate trout a lot.
Trout are picky.
It dictates every fish.
Yeah.
Just like today when we woke up and went and looked at the river, and I was like, nah, fam, this ain't going to work. And, so you got to roll with what you got. But with trout specifically, they're very temperature dependent.
Yeah.
Smallmouth don't care. You catch smallmouth whether it's 100 degrees or 1 degree. They don't care. With a trout, once it's getting over 65, 66 degrees, you're killing fish.
Yeah.
They're not as active. They're not eating like they normally do. So it's that
we're talking about water temperature too.
Yeah, water temps.
Yeah.
So over 65-degree water temp, we really start considering where we're going with our trout trips. So where we are, the rivers that we have access to tend to get warm in the summer. Mm-hmm. They are dam controlled, but the dams that do control them are, they've kind of screwed us on flows this year so far. Nothing that, can be argued or anything. It's like, hey, they got to do maintenance.
Yeah.
So it's like, whatever.
One of those, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. So, but we kind of have to deal with the cards we're dealt, and that water just gets really warm. And another thing on the Tuck especially is, and Dale actually brought this to my attention, and I started paying attention to it, and I didn't realize how bad it was. When the water levels in the Tuck get super low, the sun hits it, and it starts warming that water up, and at a certain temperature, there's an algae bloom in that water.
Yeah.
And even when they cut water on, and even more so when they cut water on, all that algae starts flowing down the river. Well, the water clarity and color and just it's horrible.
Yeah.
And then you've got flies that you've got drifting through there, and every time you pick up, you're pulling algae off your hooks. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay. So with that being said, the Tuck in the summer, July and August, it's tough. And, I'm not trout floating July and August.
Yeah.
If you want to float, we're going to float for smallies.
Right.
And so it's good to have that resource.
Yeah, definitely.
So just, paying attention to your water conditions, weather conditions, flows, things like that is all – that's something I had to learn as a guide was –
That's been the hardest thing to learn.
Yeah, like interpreting everything because there's so much information. And then I just, Logan and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago. We just added another wrinkle into what we've got to be able to interpret with tides, like reading tide charts.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So whether you're coming from a saltwater background or a freshwater background, you're looking at Duke's website. You're looking at USGS. You're looking at Weather Channel. You're looking at all these sources of information. And what I like to look for, just for any kind of fishing, smallmouth or trout, I like to look at cloud cover and sun. I like to look at when the peak temperature is going to be at the day and how cool are we starting and how quick. So, and what I say there is okay, is it going to be really sunny in the morning and then there's going to be a pressure system come in and get cloudy around midday and then that temperature is going to fall off? Or it's going to be really humid.
Mm-hmm.
That is the perfect storm.
So,
yeah,
looking for those anomalies in your day, in your daylight hours. So sunrise is at 6:03 and sunset is at 8:23.
Mm-hmm.
In those times, that's almost 14 hours, a little over 14 hours. What is your peak time to be out on the water?
Yeah.
So with trout right now, this is what me and Logan were talking about yesterday. With trout right now, you're going to be up at 5 a.m. You're going to be meeting clients at 6, and you're going to be getting on the water, and you're going to be done by 10 or 11.
Yeah.
With smallmouth, you're going to be meeting clients at 10, getting on the water at 11, and fishing through the evening.
Yeah.
Get to sleep in.
So, yeah, you get to sleep. And it's just one of those things. It's a little bit backwards because, you chase conditions, you chase what's best, and, and there's certain things that will affect the weather or the water and things like that will affect.
I've got a question for you two. Do you think, and I know it, like barometric pressure in fishing anyway, but how have you noticed barometric pressure on your smallmouth fishing? Like when storms have pushed in or when they've consistently been there? Because I think yesterday with this storm that we pushed in, yesterday would have been crazy.
You want to ride the wave. So you either want to be on the leading edge of it
or the end.
So you
don't be there in the middle.
Yeah, right in the middle is typically not good. And I've spent enough time out, and I actually keep, I think I told you this, I keep notes about how my fishing days are and stuff. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've noticed is either if there's a high spike or a high drop, it really affects the fish one way or the other. So, I would say, honestly, because the system that's on us right now came in
so fast.
Monday.
But
it started Monday.
Yeah.
So, peak times to fish during the system would have either been Sunday or it would have been yesterday. And the reason I say yesterday is because it had a day to level out.
Yep.
And it was kind of doing its thing. And then there's another low-pressure system come in today. That's what pushed all this rain in last night. Yesterday would have been prime time to be out fishing. It would have been one of those things where, and I mean, I could be wrong. Could have went out. Don't know because I wasn't out there.
Man, I was sitting in Waynesville yesterday, and you just look out, and it kind of had that look. I don't really know how to explain it, but it had that look,
that fish feeling.
And it was just like a drizzly, overcast day, and I'm like,
I have better days fishing in the rain than anything.
Yeah, some of my best days have been
if you can get uncomfortable
for trout.
No, in general,
I have not had good days with super cloudy, rainy conditions for smalls.
I've only been caught in the rain once for smallies, and that was miserable.
Yeah, that was. That was kind of my fault, though. No, I mean, with smallmouth, I have found that a sunny day,
like a bluebird sky,
what you don't want for trout normally is a good day for smallmouth.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the big
good
thing.
clarity, good sun. They like it.
So no, go ahead.
Sorry. One of the big things I noticed on sun clarity, though, if you have those clouds that constantly move in front of the sun where it's shady, sunny, shady, sunny, we have bad days.
Yeah. So there's a study.
That's weird.
There's a study.
I don't understand it.
So there's a study out there that says fish, and I think the study was specific to trout. I'd have to double check, but it says that when a fish is exposed to sun, like a full sun, and then all of a sudden it gets cloudy, and then it goes back to sun, it takes 30 minutes for their eyes to adjust to their surroundings.
Yeah.
So makes sense, because I have noticed on those days, like trout or smallmouth, I have a tough day those days. And just, late night Google searches,
That's pretty crazy.
But it literally says that it takes the fish
Just
30 minutes for their eye. You know how like when we walk out,
You have to
of a dark
our
room
eyes,
and,
our eyes have to adjust.
yeah, but ours adjust in seconds or minutes, per se.
Yeah.
A trout or a fish in general, I can't remember. Like I said, it takes them longer for them to process. And there's a study out there also that says bass can only see like 3 colors.
Yeah.
So, it's all relative. And it is funny how, like, little anomalies like that.
I mean, that was one of the last things I noticed the last time, because we went, a month ago?
Yeah.
And it was one of those days where it was, like, really, really sunny. And we're like, man, we're going to have a good day. And we started hot. Like, right out the gate.
Yeah, like
and then
100 yards from the foot in.
Yeah, and then it started getting a little overcast, and then it would get sun. And we're like, man, this is awesome. Yeah. And then it just, whenever the clouds started moving, it just stopped. And it was probably 4 or 5 hours when we got down to the bottom, and then it turned back on again. Yeah. And I was like, well, what's different? And I just looked at pictures that we had taken, and you could see the cloud coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got to the bottom, the clouds were gone. And I was like, and I thought about that. So that's interesting that their acclimation period is so long.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think the day me and you fished, Justin, it was like high clouds. I would call it like a sunny winter day. Where it's like high gray, wispy clouds that it might snow at any minute. It's also really cold.
Y'all were crazy for that.
Yeah, it was miserable. Me and Jarrett, now the day that me and Jarrett fished was probably the roughest day I've had.
Yeah.
As far as like uncomfortably cold, because the wind was just straight upstream. We're front rowing through everything. We're all freezing. Like, it was miserable.
Yeah.
But that day me and you fished, I mean, we caught fish. Took us a little while, but
we should have caught a lot more. We should have had a lot more fish in the boat than what we did.
Yes, we should have.
Don't be afraid to bass set something.
Yeah, that's my problem.
Well, and I think that's too. It's just
you
don't have the opportunity to get out and do it as much.
I work too much.
Tell Bobby we need the day off tomorrow to go.
Need a guide day out.
So anything y'all want to talk about before we wrap it up?
What gear, basic gear, if you were going to get me started as if I'm a brand new bass fisherman, what would you tell me? I've already got into trout fishing. What would you tell me to go to?
So you've already got all your trout gear?
Sure. Yeah. What would you tell a brand new person that's wanting to get into bass fishing? Like,
if somebody already has a trout setup and they are wanting something bass specific.
And let's just say they have a 9'5" weight, just for fun. Because, that's the common denominator. That's what everybody has.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's definitely.
I feel like that's what we get the most of. So if somebody had a 9'5" weight, what would be the first top 2 things you'd tell them to get?
Streamers. You need flies.
So a 9-foot, I'm just going to say you've
flies
got a trout
leaders.
set up, right?
Yeah.
And you're looking to spend some money on a second rod to go bass fish.
Yeah.
I would say.
You got that Reinhardt money.
I would say, me personally, I'd go tell you to go buy a Winston. But
let's keep brand out of it. just saying.
I would go get a 7-weight.
Okay, let's go like with size, like 6, 7. What
I would go get a 7-weight. I would get a good floating line, and I would go get a spool of 10-pound fluoro. I would learn how to tie a loop knot if you don't already. And I would go get a dozen streamers, 6 of which being white, and split the difference on the others.
Yeah. White and chartreuse have always been like some of the better colors for me.
I've never had luck with chartreuse, white and chartreuse. I have to use white and olive.
I've caught more smallmouth on the tuck on white chartreuse
I've
than
never caught anything with chartreuse.
versus any other
They
color.
laugh at me.
Which that
depends
number's
on-
not that high. I just want to go ahead and say it's not that, but all the ones that me and my other buddies
Can
have
we
caught.
tell a quick story when he gets done with this?
Yeah.
So funny.
But I would do. I mean, white just mimics a lot of different things.
And I'll kind of echo that. A 7 weight to me is like the perfect like smallmouth size. You could definitely do it on 6s. You could
Yes.
definitely do it on the 8s, but I think
I thought we were crazy when
sevens
we
are
took
that
sevens.
sevens are that sweet spot, especially like when you're throwing like a heavy sink. If you're trying to get down,
Yeah.
when these flies,
And that's
some of
what
these-
I was gonna say. The reason I say 7
yeah,
is because a 6 is undergunned with a heavy sink tip.
yeah,
Correct.
And the 7 will handle more than what a 6 will, if that makes sense. I can do.
Well, I'd hope so. It's bigger.
Well, I mean, a lot of people try to get like multiple
I'm just
uses
messing
out
with
of a
you.
lot
Yeah,
of rods.
yeah.
And a 6 will do everything that a 7 will do, but a 7 will do it better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I
like,
thought we were overgunned on 7s until one doubled me up, and it was a
Yeah.
little dink, and I was like,
Oh, okay, cool.
"Oh,
Yeah.
cool! So we're using the right thing. Got it."
Yeah.
well, and I mean, like he said earlier, I fished for them on 4 weights. I mean, you can
You
do it.
Yeah.
10 out
Yeah.
of 10 don't recommend.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna snap a rod.
Yeah.
You know, the first time you grab it up about the first eye, you're gonna snap that thing, and it's gonna be like, oh, sad now.
Yeah.
I thought
remember,
my Winston was gone that day.
Yeah, I remember like the first time I went smallmouth fishing, and we were throwing like a big, we were throwing a 7 weight setup with a sink. It was like a 6-inch a second. I mean, just like bombing, just sinking line, and we had like a big swimmy jimmy or something like that fly on there, and when you're just casting it before it gets wet, like, oh man, this is nothing.
Yeah, and then it gets wet.
Then it gets wet, and you're like pulling like a weighted wet sock out of the water and trying to cast it back. So you want a rod
That can handle that.
that has that backbone that can turn over these big flies. So
Well, and I've got 8s that I put on the boat
Just in
specifically
case.
for that, because if you want to really chuck some meat at them, and like
Yeah.
big fish hunt, I'll throw 6-inch flies, or bigger,
Yeah.
big articulated.
and bass
stuff.
will eat it, so don't like they are not
I ain't scared.
No,
they're not
no, and but if I had to tell somebody like, hey, you've already got everything you need to trout fish, what do I need to go bass fish? I want a exclusive rod for that. Go get a 7 weight.
Yeah.
Go get you a quality 7 weight with a good quality line and a good reel with drag, and
Definitely.
so this is an argument that a lot of people have is like, I tie a lot of my own leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Logan were talking about this yesterday. He's like, you got any leaders tied up? I was like, yeah, I got a handful. He's like, I need to tie up a few. I was like, don't worry about it, dude. So these bass don't care. I was like, put straight 10-pound on the end of that fly line and chunk it out there, and they're going to eat it.
Yep.
But fluoro. I do like fluoro better.
Yeah.
Gives you a little bit better sink rate on that end. But if you're fishing a floating line. But yeah, I mean, really, just rod and reel setup is the biggest thing for smallmouth. Now, if somebody comes to me, like I have this question all the time, hey, I want to fish multiple species, I'm going to tell them 6 weight. Because a 6 weight still has enough touch to do trout and cast, dry flies. Because, I mean, you can cast dry flies with a 7 weight.
You can.
You can.
Yeah.
It ain't
It's
fun.
not fun, but,
So
a 6 weight will do a little bit of everything.
I had a guy come in the shop that said that he was fishing in the national park with an 8 weight and showed me like fish that he caught all day.
Yeah.
And he said that the fish weren't fighting. And I was like, well, it's because you're throwing an 8 weight.
You're throwing a 2
he,
by 4
he
boat.
has a saltwater background, but you can definitely do it with these heavy. But
I had a client get on my boat, and he was like, hey, man, I want to fish my rod. I'm like, all right, cool.
yeah,
I don't care. And he busted out, and he's got a 7 weight, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing this today. And,
we're streamer fishing now.
And that's what I
was
told
my
him. I was like, you want to throw
favorite.
streamers? And he's like, no, I was going to throw a dry dropper. And I was like,
Oh.
okay.
But we
But
say
he
it can
snapped,
be
I
done.
will say he snapped off several fish
Yeah, yeah,
because that rod had too much backbone
Yeah.
for 5X.
yeah.
That's where like matching your equipment to your task is
Yeah.
important. Can I take a 4 weight and go catch smallmouth? Yes.
Should I?
Is it the best tool for the job?
No.
No.
Yeah.
I was so scared my GVX was gone that day.
Man,
I
that
hooked up
GVX
on
is landing
3.
a lot bigger than fish than that.
We were going to dry drop just to test the waters,
Yeah.
And he's like, here, watch this. Ties a streamer on, and this thing comes out from under a log and just hammers it. And I went,
We
oh,
watched it.
gosh. And he went just like he said, put his hand up about the first eye, and I went, I was like, here it goes.
I also owned that rod before you, so I know how much pressure I can put on that rod.
Terrifying. Yeah. And then, so that was like his third cast with this 4-weight, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go do it. We rode for like an hour and a half before I even got a look, and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I want my 7-weight back.
Yeah.
But, just matching the tool for the task.
Yep.
Is the biggest thing. And I'd say that's fishing across the board.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's not just a smallmouth specific. Just match your tool to your task.
Well, I believe, if we love smallmouth, it's great.
Yeah,
if you want to book a smallmouth trip, call us.
I will show you what the hype is about.
Come by the shop, see us. Let's book it. We can run them. We're starting them. We're running them now, like through the summer, fall.
I hope to run them. I don't know how much activity we'll have, but I hope to be able to run them year round.
Yeah.
Just to give, because we do have some hardcore anglers that come that want to do something other than trout.
Yeah.
And just have that option for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, give us a shout, man. I'd love to get y'all out on the boat and show y'all what I'm passionate about fishing, but like super passionate about.
We
smallmouth.
love smallmouth.
Yeah, like I love the smallmouth fish.
That is.
Anytime I get the opportunity to share that with somebody, I enjoy it. So yeah, like Justin said, give us a shout at the shop. Go online. If you book it online, it's in the drop down tab as part of one of the options that we have for it. Don't allow like if you're coming up in July and August and you're really wanting to go fishing, don't not fish just because we can't float for trout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give us a shout. We'll see what we can get you in on, and I'd love to get y'all out on the boat. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Matt, where are we going?
Logan, I appreciate y'all being on here. It's
absolutely.
This is my first time.
We've been here over an hour, so
I know this is my first time.
I know we can keep going here.
They're not going to let me on the podcast because we talk so much.
You never come back. No. Appreciate it. Glad we got to talk about this.
Man.
Yeah.
We will see you all in the next one.
Sounds good.
That wraps up another episode of the Tuckcast with a Splash of Bourbon. For more content, visit Tuckasegee Fly Shop's YouTube channel for instructional how-tos, reviews, and more. For fly fishing articles, check out Tuckasegee Fly Shop's blog at tuckflyshop.com. Thanks for listening. Tight lines.